Well, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. I thought that as we approach this Christmas season, this Christmas day, I'd like to share a few reflections on Christmas with you. And I'm going to start in a very unusual way. About 15 years ago, a friend of mine who was raising Morgan horses had a young horse about 4 years old who had never been touched. And so I said to him, since I had read this book on horse whispering, let's try this method out. And he said, fine. So we caught the horse, put him in a round corral, and I did all the things I was supposed to do. Ran him around one way for about 15 minutes, and ran him around another way for 15 minutes. And finally the horse stopped and looked at me, and so I went and sat down on the other end of the corral. And the horse would look at me, then he'd look away, then he'd look at me, he'd look away. And finally he came over and he started chewing on my boots. And then he chewed on my jeans. Then he allowed me to scratch his nose, and I could pet his head. And finally, over the course of 15 sessions, we were able to put a saddle on him. I was able to get on him. This horse never bucked. And this method is sort of based on making friends with this animal. And one thing you need to know about horses, they are fearful animals. They're always afraid. So it takes them a long time to enter into a bond. It seems to me that this is the same way God treats us. God looked down on us and he said, I'm dealing with people who are basically afraid. They're afraid of me, they're afraid of the future, they're afraid of death, they're afraid of all kinds of things. So how am I going to teach them what I really think about them? And he said, the way I'm going to do that is to become one of them. And so God became human in this little baby, Jesus. And who can be afraid of this little child? This child who comes into the world needing us. Sort of an interesting piece. When God decides to come among us, it's not as a great king who we would naturally be afraid of, with a lot of power, because we'd be afraid of that power, with a lot of money, because we'd be afraid of that money. He comes among us as a child. And this forces all of us to gather around this baby and take care of him. And so too with our God. Throughout the whole of the New Testament, Jesus is trying to teach us that the one thing he wants to be is our friend. He wants to be closer to us than even our clothes. And yet somehow it's very difficult for us to come near him. Christmas time, it's easy to come near this Jesus. And a good way to pray during this time is to envision that scene of Jesus in the manger, in the stable. And walk into that stable where Mary and Joseph are there and the child Jesus, and let Mary hand you this baby. We've all held babies. And hold this child in your arms. And as Mary and Joseph go off to Kmart or wherever, you have this baby in your arms. And allow that baby to love you. In those quiet moments, we will learn what Christmas is about. Merry Christmas to you and to your families.